Standard 7, Micro-Political Leadership. How do you equitably share resources so there is no squeaky wheel gets the grease mentality? At Pine Valley, we have monthly staff meetings as a whole group and then weekly PLC meetings with our grade level and instructional coaches. It is important during these meetings that all stakeholders are given a chance to both share and access information and resources from their colleagues. Before each staff meeting, Mr. Kantrowitz sends out an email asking if anybody wants to share anything or add to the agenda or if anybody has any questions about said meeting. The same concept applies to our PLCs with our instructional coach, Ms. Smith. She will send out an agenda for that week's meeting. That way, when we get to the meeting as a grade level, we have all the data collection that we need, we have our devices, and by having that preparation done and by having these meetings weekly, we maintain a sense of equity between all staff members as everyone has a voice if they so choose. How do you ensure staff, family, and students see you as accessible and visible? Well, at Pine Valley, Mr. Kantrowitz and Mrs. James have an open door policy. Unless they are in a meeting, their office doors are almost always open. Our school also utilizes social media platforms, Classroom Dojo, Google Mail to communicate with staff, parents, and the community. Through this constant availability and communication, all stakeholders understand what is happening in the school and with the community as a whole. There are also times where parents or PTA representatives will attend staff meetings to share information on what is happening or if they have any information about information that has been shared. It is important that this communication stays open and fluid as schools are ever changing, and when it comes to students' well-being, clarity is key to school-to-home communication. So Pine Valley, we take the school-to-home communication very seriously. Again, we utilize the county platforms along with social media, and the PTA does a really good job as well of communicating with families. How do you prepare for the unknown, such as tragedy, an accident, or disaster? At Pine Valley, we discuss the safety expectations at the beginning of your meeting and what policies and or procedures may have changed over summer. This is one of the most important aspects of our beginning of year meeting because we learn how to best keep students safe in our building. Oftentimes, the safety protocols will continue to evolve and change, so our monthly staff meetings, our administration will then update us if any county expectations have changed or if even law enforcement expectations have changed. The big difference this year was that we had surprise check-ins from the county. They would monitor the staff and make sure we're following expectations of the county. An example of that would be if they come to the door at the front office, they have to be let in by an internal staff member. So they have to ring the bell, talk to the staff member inside, and they release the door and let them in. We are not allowed to let them in. So sometimes they'll check to make sure we're not letting people in the building. They have to be buzzed in through the front door. We also had a much stronger law enforcement presence this year. We had our regular deputies that were around throughout the day, but then we also had probation officers that live nearby, would just stop in and walk around campus. You'd have other sheriff's deputies, you'd have Wilmington police. So we expected that, so that communication let us know that it was okay. There was gonna be a heavier law enforcement presence on campus. And then we also monitor current events that are going on as well and how they relate to school. How do you encourage diverse views and maintain both vertical and horizontal communication? Again, we ensure communication with our parents by having mandatory conferences 3 times a year, and we keep a conference log of the conferences and what was discussed, and we turn those in every quarter. And we must have at least one touch point with a parent outside of any school events, outside of inside school events. This has to be a separate conference. And so Mr. Kantrowitz requires us to each quarter turn in our conference log. It shows the person you met with, the date, the time, and what was discussed during that conference. And then how many times you have those, you just log those. And then we obviously use Google Mail, and so we keep track of our email communication as well. And we even write down phone calls we make just so we know that we're having those touch points. Mr. K highly encourages communication, and that's been a strong backbone of our school's success, is simply communicating with everybody, the parents, all the stakeholders, the community, everyone that comes into the school, just so all the expectations are clear. Some recommendations I have is I think it would be a little bit helpful to have the administration have a calendar that lets us know when they're going to be off campus. This would be helpful for a few reasons for the accessibility piece of the standard. Oftentimes, if we have to reach out to the office for something, a student issue, a parent issue, we don't always know who's going to be there. And you really rely on 4 people. You rely on the principal, the assistant principal, the social worker, and the school counselor. And with the new budget and the way things are going, I believe our social worker is going to be split between 2 schools. The counselor, I believe, is still there, but they're asking more of these people. So it might be helpful to have a calendar that has everybody's availability of when they're going to be on campus, just for basic things like if you're off campus for a meeting or something like that, or you're out for the day, just so we know who to try to communicate with. So it might be helpful for accessibility to have a calendar of those 4 folks, just to help us with running the school a little bit more efficiently.